Okay, so you don't say phone, you don't say device, you say computer, or you really say the internet is now a mobile thing. So we're next going to be talking about the wireless world with two of the real aggressive leaders of that industry, Dan Hesse, CEO of Sprint, and Paul Jacobs, CEO of Qualcomm. They're going to talk about where all this wireless amazing innovation is going next. To interview them will be Jon Fortt, who's a colleague of mine, a senior writer at Fortune based in San Francisco, covering Silicon Valley technology and innovation. So please welcome Dan Hesse, Paul Jacobs, and Jon Fortt.
Thanks, Dan and Paul, for being here. I personally, in what I cover and look at, am really excited about the confluence of mobile, wireless broadband, and the cloud. I mean, it just seems to be shaking everything up. If you had told me 10 years ago that Apple would have 40 million computers, wireless computers out there, and be the thought leader in a new computing platform, I would have called you crazy. And I really think that Sprint and Qualcomm are two of the most interesting companies in this space. Qualcomm, because it's the leading technology provider for wireless, really, and Sprint, because it had been beat up so much in the past. But Sprint, as I've covered it, has been really innovative when it came to adopting the Trio first, when it came to just letting computers onto the network. And now you guys have the Palm Pre, you guys have the Kindle. Hope to talk about all of that. But before we get into that, in this wireless, broadband, mobile device, cloud computing environment, how are each of you positioning your companies to jump ahead of the competition and really provide something different?
Well, I think one of the reasons that wireless is going to be so important is because particularly younger people, but everybody, they want everything now, and that's actually part of our brand campaign. The opportunity is not just mobile devices, and mobile devices have changed a lot. Actually, we're just looking at the numbers that we're predicting for 2010 and 2011 in terms of what we call feature phones, which have typically dominated the industry for a long time. And they're basically, the way you think of a feature phone is a voice phone. It can do text. It's got it's got a 10-digit keypad, whether it's a flip phone or what have you. And the growth of what we call QWERTY touch smartphones, and that is changing faster than anybody could imagine. And actually that phone is much more powerful in many respects, or has more utility than your computer. Your computer isn't a mobile navigation device. It's typically not an MP3 player. It's not a camera. And you can go, it's not a gaming device, in addition to be able to doing email and everything else. So not only can I take it with me everywhere, but it does lots of things that that computer doesn't do. So that could become almost the center of your universe in many respects. And where I see things moving in terms of this cloud is the way that things have been connected have largely been via wires. Homes have been connected, and Wi-Fi networks, your LANs have had a wire line connection to them. Now everything's going to be connected, whether it's via Wi-Fi or via Bluetooth or via near-field communications or Zigbee or what have you, and then connect to the cloud or the internet via the mobile wireless network, whether it be 3G or 4G. So this device, which I'm,
here comes the plug.
Here comes the prop, and it's off. But this switch is a mobile hotspot. So what it allows, as long as you have a Wi-Fi device, up to 5 of them can be connected to the internet all the time. You can just take them with you in the car or what have you. So your netbook, your PC, your iPod, your MP3 player, your camera, or what have you. And this connects to the 3G network. And when we launch 4G later this year, it'll work 4G, 3G dual mode. So imagine 4G kinds of speed. So as you think of mobility, it's not just your phone, and by the way, it's no longer a phone, your device, it's much more, but everything else you have, you can take with you, because as long as it's got, whether it's Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or some kind of, typically Wi-Fi, and there's 425 million of them out there today, that are Wi-Fi enabled, we say are already 4G devices. People say, well, 4G, it's going to take a while to get all these devices with 4G in them. Well, you don't have to, because as long as you have something like this, and as long as they have some other wireless standard like Wi-Fi in them, they can connect to this and go to the mobile network. So there's going to be all this growth.
So I always stand behind the operator, and what he says, we're totally not enabling technology for that. But yeah, I mean, we have the same vision. We've been on this vision where the mobile internet's going to be a more impactful technology than even the fixed internet. And we love all the stuff that we see, these kind of mashups happening. We were talking backstage about how the Pre allows me to download my daughter's Facebook picture into my contact list, and when she updates it, it updates in my phone. And those kinds of things where you take attributes of the phone and the fact that you have it with you all the time, and then you combine that with stuff that you've gotten off the internet, all this cloud computing and applications and so forth. I think it's going to be really compelling for people. And we've taken that another step where we're building what we call smart books. So we take the smartphone capability, but we give a 10-inch screen and a full-size keyboard to it. And now you think about it, you're basically powering a smartphone from a laptop-sized battery. The thing can last for a very, very long time. It'll be on the network all the time. All of your stuff will be updated, so it's more like your BlackBerry with your email contacts calendar updated, but also your Facebook status, latest news, various kinds of things are going to be on the device. So that's a big area that we have a push in, and we get a lot of traction from the laptop manufacturers because they're looking for something new to go do. And these devices are very compelling, super thin, super lightweight, last all the time, so very long time. So that's an exciting area. And then when we look at the next thing is, if the processor is not using so much power, what's using a lot of power? The display. So we're actually working on the display technology that's a reflective technology like e-ink, but it does video, does full color, it's viewable outdoors, and so we're going to start seeing those things roll out towards the end of the year as well. And now when you think I don't need to spend the power on the processor, on the communications, or the display, now the form factors are going to get really, really interesting.
Now you mentioned the Pre, so I got to see what I can get out of Dan about that. When the Pre was just getting ready to come out, there's all sorts of excitement. Here's finally a viable competitor to the iPhone in terms of what it can do and how it works and all that. I think you just had dinner with John Rubinstein last night, yep. So you're a Pre fan too. And then, they came out on the market, and there's all these guesses about, well, are they selling or not? Well, this store only sold 5 and whatnot. I think this morning, Mike Abramsky at RBC estimated that you sold between 325 and 375,000 of them to date. How's it doing? Are you as excited as you were when you said that this was a coming out party for Sprint, and when are we going to be able to really tell what kind of impact it's having for you?
Before you start, I just want you to know John bought me dinner, so he's pretty happy.
Well, you'll have to, first of all, cut me a break because we have earnings on Wednesday. And so, I can't say a lot. But what we have said is, it broke sales records right at, weekend, first week, did extremely well. And there have been shortages of the device, so that has been, if you will, the limiting factor of how many we've sold is how many John can make. It's still a very, very good device, but you also said something which is absolutely correct, is you won't know whether you have a real hit on your hand until it's been out for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. We're just now beginning to roll it out in a decent quantity to our indirect distribution. Best Buy, Radio Shack, Walmart, who were very, very constrained early on. So it's too early to tell. What I will say about it, though, what we feel the best about, is it was such a great launch in terms of operationally, how well the launch went. Technical issues, network issues, et cetera. We had actually 2 weeks ago, we have a call center in Oklahoma City, which is our what we call Tier 2, Tier 3, and whenever we launch a new smartphone, new device, we funnel all the phones to this center where you have people who really know it inside out. And we canceled the trip and ended up going to a collections center in Denver instead because there have been just so few issues. It has been so flawless. And when I go out to the stores and I talk to people in sales, they just talk about this as being our best launch ever. So we worked on it really hard to make sure that the phone worked well, the network worked well at retail and training. John gave us a whole bunch of people from Palm that actually were in our stores to answer questions and help us so that the customer experience was very good. So that's all I can say because we're close to earnings.
All right, now I'm not ready for the poll yet, but everybody get your Spot Me devices ready because I'm going to have a question coming up in a little bit. Before we get to that, I want to shift to Android. Now, Qualcomm was one of the first folks supporting Android and working with Google on that. You guys are seen as having silicon that's ahead of some others when it comes to being able to get on Android devices, and I think you're on the HTC devices that are out thus far. Paul, how important is Android specifically for you? I hear that we're getting ready to see about almost 20 devices coming out in the next few months. Are you going to get a real lift for that? What do you expect that to do for you and just for the whole wireless ecosystem?
Well, I mean, so we're excited about Android because it's a nice combination of the internet and mobility, and so you get the services on it, and they're nice devices. They did a very good job on the user interface, and what you're going to see now is with all these companies coming out, you're going to see a broad diversity of both form factors, and people are adding on to the software too because of this open source nature. So it's a pretty exciting time, and you will see some interesting products. And in fact, some of these smart book designs that I was talking about, where you take a smartphone and grow it up into a netbook form factor, those things are also going to be based off of Android as well. And then you've probably heard that there's also this Chrome operating system that they're working on beyond that, which is getting the apps off the network, really out of the cloud and onto the device locally. So there's this nice roadmap there, a lot of partners working on it. I think we're going to see a lot of experimentation, and we'll see what turns out to be the thing that consumers want.
Now, Dan, when Android first came out, I think it was in October at the National Press Club, you were quoted as saying that it wasn't good enough to put the Sprint brand on it. Since then, we've actually seen, though the device itself, the G1, got some criticism, it's actually gotten quite a bit of data traffic flowing through it when you look at the charts at how it's doing compared to BlackBerry and some of the others. So I'm wondering now, in retrospect, was the first version good enough to put on Sprint? And now that we've got kind of version 2 out there, is it good enough now?
Yeah, well, we've said publicly, and we've been part of the kind of open device initiative and supporter of it and supporter of Android from the beginning. And actually, you're exactly right. The reviews that are coming out now basically say now the phone's, now it's ready for prime time. It wasn't when it came out. So actually, most of the reviews, I think, are in complete agreement with what I said a year ago, that it wasn't ready for prime time yet, but would be. So we're a huge supporter of Android. We think it'll be important. We've also said that we plan to have Android devices in our lineup, but we'll have at least one this year. So I'm glad we waited because I think that they're coming and they'll be strong. But I agree with a lot that's been written. And as usual, whatever I say is taken out of context.
Am I taking you out of context?
No.
Okay.
That's fair. Yeah.
Well, let's throw it to the quiz now. There's a huge number of, not quiz, but poll. There's a huge number of operating systems out there just kind of proliferating right now, and I wonder how many Sprint, any operator, handset makers can support. I want to know what mobile OS is going to die. And I forgot to put BlackBerry OS up there, but take your vote. Is it 1, iPhone, 2, WebOS, 3, Android, 4, Symbian, 5, Windows Mobile? And I'm wondering which one you guys think 2 or 3 years from now we'll be mourning its demise, and why?
Me personally.
Votes closed. Let's see what the people say, and then.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, well, look at that. iPhone and WebOS tied, but nobody thinks Android is going to die. That's shocking. Maybe we don't have a lot of Spot Me devices out there. Everybody from Google's voting. So,
I personally don't think any of them are going to die.
Really?
No, I don't. We as operators have been trying really hard to get things simpler and more open, but I think as long as what I'm seeing is the OS is evolving to create more of a laptop kind of experience on the mobile device, like we were talking about, the ability to multitask and all these things you can do on your PC. And I think as long as that's the case, I don't necessarily see any of these OSs dying. But What do you think? Yeah.
I mean, we're investing in almost all of those OSs. So
which one aren't you investing in? Because I guess that's
well, you know which one. We're not in the iPhone with our chips yet. Our technology's in there, so that's good. But yeah, I think we're in a period where there's a lot of diversity and a lot of experimentation. Maybe you will see developers gravitate one way or another. But the thing you got to remember, I mean, the cell phone business is so large. It can support a lot of different operating systems, a lot of different devices and so forth. And so you'll see developer communities gravitate to each one of these different operating systems. And also, it's not going to be so hard to move between them when you start thinking about things like apps coming out of the cloud as well. Because then you're going to have a much more consistent environment for the developer to develop in between each one of these operating systems. So it may not matter so much in the future, but I think you're probably going to see a lot of them around.
Well, I've got a few things that I want to cover. I also want to get to some questions. But Dan, something that we were talking about a bit ago was really fascinating to me, the idea that prepaid, which in the wireless business used to be, well, if you have to do it, it's okay, but it's really not as attractive a business as postpaid. Prepaid is looking a little different these days with the economic times being what they are. Tell me about that.
Well, I think it's, first of all, the economic shift. Secondly, it's the evolution of prepaid plans. People even call them hybrid plans, things like Boost Unlimited that look a lot like a postpaid plan where you pay for a whole month and you might get an unlimited kind of an offer.
And you pay for your phone up front.
And you pay for the phone up front, you pay for the month up front. So from a carrier's point of view, there's a lot to like about it economically. Your subscriber acquisition cost, your cost per gross ad, much lower, not only in terms of what you pay the retailer, in terms of because they're not getting the customer to sign up for a 2-year contract. You pay them less, you subsidize the phone less, churn is higher. And so what is improving the economics of prepaid is with respect to these plans, as long as you have a good network and you're offering a good value, churn is beginning to come down and come down fairly significantly, not to postpaid levels because there's no contract. You're not going to get the same kind of loyalty as a contract buys you, on prepaid, but much better. So the economics are improving substantially. So we launched Boost Unlimited on our IDEN network. The other beauty about that was we had an IDEN network out there with extra capacity.
Are we going to end up with like Android phones on prepaid plans?
Possibly. We'll see what happens. It's all a matter of economics and what customers will pay for. What we are seeing is typically prepaid phones have been your lower end phones because they're not subsidized, so customers pay $100 for a $100 phone, not like the iPhone or some of the Android phones that are $600 and $700 phones. We'll see what happens. But what is interesting for us is, for example, the Motorola Stature, i9 Stature, which is a $300 device, and we sell it for $300, is selling and selling very well in the prepaid market. So stay tuned. We might bring upscale devices into prepaid.
There's actually a pretty interesting story about prepaid with Hutchison because they built a Brew phone that's about a $100 phone for the prepaid market. They put Skype on it, and they let people do Skype-to-Skype calls. If they were both prepaid subscribers on the Hutchison network, those Skype-to-Skype calls were free. And they did it exactly for the churn reduction effect. And they thought it was cheaper for them to do that than to lose the customer and have to do more customer acquisition. So you get this kind of interesting merging of the internet and mobility there to do something that's pretty fundamental to an operator's economics.
Well, I want to ask you about smart books, or whatever we're calling them this month.
We're calling them smart books. Okay.
So netbooks, in my mind, are mostly just cheap laptops, right? And when we saw them first come out, a lot of them ran Linux, and people returned a lot of them. Now we see a lot of netbooks pretty much standard, running Atom chips from Intel and Windows XP. Given that, people tried Linux, didn't seem to like it, moved to Wintel. Why do you think that smart books with your chips in them are going to work?
Look, it's definitely the case that a netbook is just an inexpensive PC, so people want the PC experience out of it. But what we think is going to happen with the smart books is that you're going to want a mobile experience out of it. So things like what happens with your BlackBerry, where your email contacts, calendar are all updated all the time. It's always on the network. We're running at much, much lower power, so the form factors are going to be much more aggressive. The thing doesn't have a fan in it. Doesn't have a big hard drive in it. It's not using a lot of power for the processor. It's really only the screen that's using the power. So now you think about it, when you close the lid and that screen goes off, I'm now running a smartphone on a laptop-sized battery. The thing will last for a very, very long time while it's always connected to the network and always downloading stuff. Now, we've just been talking about Android. I mean, Android is a Linux-based system. So there is adoption coming. There's a lot of effort behind it. A lot of, you got the Google brand behind it as well. So I think that's going to help also. And then finally, I think the other lesson to learn is the one from the iPhone, which is the iPhone is Mac OS X underneath, but you didn't expect to see a Windows windowing environment on it and all the same applications that you have on your Mac running there. So if you give people a different experience, they are willing to accept different ways of getting the applications and different ways of interacting with the device. And that's why I think we have this great, it's a perfect storm right now. We got the networks there, we got the device costs down, and we got all these apps coming out of the cloud. All of these things are going to come together and I think create something that's going to change mobile computing.
Now, I would love to ask you guys about the Kindle too, and since it's on your network, I know you'd like to talk about it, but I also want to get to questions. So I see there's one right here that Dan's probably not going to answer. Are pre-returns as high as people claim?
I'll give you an answer, no.
All right, there's your answer. Another question over here.
That's simple.
Yeah.
Could you identify yourself too?
And by the way, let me just say, there's things all over. People are speculating. So I claim people are speculating on what they could be, and I'll say that most of the speculation I read is wrong.
Okay.
Orlando Portali at Palomar Health in San Diego. Hi, Paul.
How you doing?
I thought I'd tee up a good question for you, and give you an opportunity to talk about what you're doing in healthcare in the vertical with regard to wireless technology.
Yeah, so thanks. So we're actually spending a lot of effort in wireless health. I mean, there's a big problem in the developed world that doctors are aging at the same time as the whole population is aging. The doctors are going to be retiring when we most need them. So the way to solve that problem is to improve wellness and improve productivity. And having sensors that are connected to your body for management of fitness, management of chronic diseases, then connected back into the network so your healthcare provider can essentially watch over you. I think these are things that are going to make a big difference. And we already have a proof point out there. There's a company called CardioNet where they do cardiac monitoring, and clinical studies have been done that show that it's 3 times better at finding heart problems because the person's up, walking around, exercising their heart instead of laying in a hospital bed. So you get better performance at a lower cost by connecting somebody up. So I look at it and I think, in the future it's going to be the same way. When you have a cell phone right now, it's not that you're talking to your friends and family all the time, it's that you can. And I think the same thing's going to be true of healthcare. It's not that you're talking to your doctor, your healthcare provider all the time. You know that they'll be able to watch over you, and if something bad happens, then things can be done for you. So we're working with a lot of companies, people building wireless sensors out there. We just partnered to start a thing called the West Wireless Health Institute, which is actually going to provide an ability to take sensors and other kinds of health devices all the way through clinical trials and translation into practice. And that's opening up in San Diego.
Okay. We got another Spot Me question here from Gina Keating. Does Dan think Sprint will follow Verizon in letting some smaller carriers sell handsets that Sprint has exclusive deals to distribute? And what would be the parameters for that type of agreement?
Well, I'm not going to speculate on that, although the only comment I would make is that the small carriers didn't respond very favorably based upon their comments publicly. So.
Okay. I'm going to slip one in about the Kindle. So the Kindle runs on Sprint's network. Folks seem to be very excited about it. It's certainly gotten a lot of buzz here at the conference. Why should we be excited for Sprint on this? I mean, from what I've seen, it hasn't been a huge revenue generator for you. Why should we be excited about the Kindle and devices like it on Sprint's network?
Well, I think by themselves, one device, and we have over 300 non-Sprint branded devices, You know, over 160 of them are what we would call machine to machine, even though there's there's a human interface with the Kindle.
So what kind of stuff is that?
GPS systems that say where your trucks are, where your drivers are, and little cameras that, you know, kind of, can you actually peek in on the driver, and all sorts of, if you will, devices like, you know, like that. And the Kindle's another great example. The beauty for us is there's no marketing cost. There's no subsidy. There's no care. There's no billing. Amazon does all that, and all they do is use traffic on, you know, they use our network, which is already built, and it's not a huge data drain or information drain on our network, but it's additional, if you will, margin for us. So you can take a look at the Kindle by itself, but this is an expanding field. So again, we have over 300 of them on our network. They're growing at a very rapid rate. So collectively, this will, I think, be a significant positive for Sprint over the long term.
Okay, I wonder what the long term is, but
yeah,
we got a question over here.
But let me say that it's immediately profitable. I mean, because there are no costs, but it's not enough, if you will, to move the needle. I think that's your point.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting new business model also. You think a consumer electronics device that somebody goes to the store and buys, it's a wireless device, but they don't have to think about that. It just sort of magically works that they can get their books down there. So we've been doing things around gaming device. We launched a game console in the developing world called Zebo, and this thing's the same model. It's just the way you get your games is over the air, and you pay for the airtime cost when the game gets downloaded.
Over here.
Yeah, this is Peter Tripp from Winefellow. So first off, Dan, I got to applaud your commercial campaign. Your PR agency is really putting a persona on you, which is very commendable. So it's nice to see you in person here versus on a TV set.
And in color.
And in color, that's right. I get to see it here as well as up there. Wi-Fi. So a lot of the new smartphones today have or will have Wi-Fi capability. Certainly you're familiar with voice over IP, and there's a trend to start moving in that direction. How are you looking at as far as impacting your business model and your strategy roadmap going forward? I'm sure it's going to look at your revenue streams in some dynamics.
Well, not to get into too much specificity, but we really are, over time, I mean, voice is just becoming an application. And there's going to be lots and lots of applications, and there are lots of new applications that will, if you will, fill up the spot that voice once had. And I talked about the devices that feature phones, which are primarily voice devices, are going down and being replaced by these phones that do so many other things, including voice, more than just voice. You know, pictures and GPS, and you'll get to high definition video and all sorts of other things that will come and replace that revenue stream. So even on, so these devices we're talking about are, you know, you pay X amount per month, and one of the beauties about them, and they do connect via Wi-Fi, so it's related to your question. They connect to our network. Whether it's a voice over IP device, we don't really care. They pay us X amount per month for connection to our network, and what users will have is they'll have more than just their phone. They'll have lots of other devices, and we won't know what application they're using necessarily, or care, or control it. It'll be very open. We're just, if you will, a connectivity point to, you know, to the internet, to the cloud, and also allow all sorts of things in the house. And as you move, you're going to see chips in cars, all sorts of things come that connect all of your devices to, you know, to the net. And so this notion of protecting the voice franchise. I remember many years ago when I was the AT&T guy sent out to run AT&T Wireless after we had acquired Macaw Cellular. And you know, I kind of came in and looked at the model, and back then, of course, the big streams that the wireless carriers wanted to protect were roaming revenues. Boy, we got to hold on to those things. And then on the wireline side of AT&T, it was, well, pay phones and calling cards and what have you. So when we constructed this idea called digital one rate, which today is like, boy, that's, you know, when I talk to younger people and I explain that, you know, 12 years ago, if you're in one city, local call was A cents a minute, long distance call was B cents a minute. I traveled, a local call was C cents a minute, a long distance call was D cents a minute. And I remember the toughest sale I had to make was back at AT&T headquarters, which is what happens to the payphones, what happens to the calling cards. And you're right, something is going to cannibalize it, but something else is going to take it up and be more of it. So net is not an issue.
We've got time for, I think, one more question over here. From my boss.
A question for both panelists. I'd be interested to know what you gentlemen think is going to happen to Motorola.
You start.
Of course, we have a vested interest in a great partnership with Motorola. So, they are the exclusive supplier to us for our IDEN equipment and our IDEN devices. By the way, and that business is very healthy. They're a public safety business, their IDEN business, and what have you. Some things I can't disclose, but I'm pretty impressed with, on the handset side, what Sanjay's been able to do there since he's been there, and his team in terms of the roadmap of what they're doing on the device side. So I have cautious optimism about Motorola's future.
Yeah, I'd just say, I mean, Sanjay came from Qualcomm. He's a great guy. He works extremely hard. He's a very smart guy. And he's got a big job ahead of him for sure. He knew that when he went there, and I think the economic downturn made it an even harder job. But if there's a guy who can pull it off, I think he's the right guy in the right place at the right time. And so we're definitely rooting for him. We're trying to help him as much as we can.
All right, well, it looks like that's all we've got time for. Thanks so much to Paul Jacobs and Dan Hesse for sharing your thoughts. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.